All right, so picture this. It's the middle of winter. You're miles from civilization. And in the dead of night, something makes you grab a knife.
Wow.
And slash your way out of your tent.
Really?
Sound like a horror movie.
Yeah, like, totally.
Well, this is the very real and very chilling mystery of the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
And what's so fascinating about this case, even decades after it happened, is that we're still trying to figure out what made those hikers do exactly that. It's like a real-life game of Clue, but way higher stakes.
Okay, so let's set the scene for our listeners who maybe haven't heard of this case.
Okay.
It's February 1959. We're in the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia. Bleak, frigid.
Yes.
And a group of 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, set up camp for the night.
Yeah.
Now, these aren't weekend warriors we're talking about here, right?
These were not, these were seasoned hikers.
Okay.
From the Ural Polytechnical Institute. Students, recent grads.
Wow.
On track for top-tier certification.
So they knew what they were doing.
They knew the terrain. They were prepared for the elements. They had a plan.
So this should have been another successful expedition for them.
Exactly. They kept meticulous diaries. They maintained contact with a support team. Everything seemed routine until it went radio silent.
And that's when the alarm bells start going off.
Yes.
When a group of experienced outdoors people just go off grid.
Right.
Unexpectedly, something's wrong.
Something was wrong. Weeks later, a search party finds their abandoned campsite on the slopes of Kholat Chayakal, which ominously translates to Dead Mountain.
Dead Mountain, okay.
And here's where things get strange. The tent was found ripped open from the inside.
Okay, red flag number 1. You're in sub-zero temperatures. Why would you cut yourself out of your shelter?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It gets weirder. The hikers' belongings were still inside. Warm clothes, food, their shoes.
What?
Everything you'd think essential for survival in that kind of weather.
So they weren't just making a quick dash for help.
No.
Something made them leave in a hurry and ditch essential gear.
It's like they fled in a panic, more afraid of something inside the tent than the freezing wilderness outside.
Oh, okay.
And the way the tent was cut, these weren't neat slices. These were desperate, almost frantic cuts.
Okay, now my skin is officially crawling.
Yeah.
So what about the hikers themselves?
Over the next few weeks, search parties found their bodies scattered across the mountainside. Some almost a mile from the tent.
Wow.
Some had succumbed to hypothermia, which, given the circumstances, you might expect, but others...
Let me guess, they didn't die from the cold.
Exactly. These hikers had bizarre injuries.
Okay.
We're talking about severe internal trauma.
Internal? What do you mean?
Like they'd been in a high-speed collision, but with no corresponding external injuries.
So they're like crushed on the inside, but there's no like outward sign of what could have done it.
Exactly. One hiker was even missing her tongue.
Right, now that's just unsettling.
Yeah.
What could possibly cause that kind of damage without leaving a mark on the outside? It's like something out of the X-Files.
It's no wonder this case has captured imaginations for decades.
Yeah.
It's like staring into the void of the unknown.
So before we dive into the theories, and I bet we've got some doozies for this one.
Oh, yeah.
What was the official explanation at the time? Because clearly they just wandered off and got lost.
Yeah.
Doesn't really cut it here.
Initially, investigators pointed to an avalanche.
Okay.
It seemed plausible on the surface.
Right.
But when you look at the specifics, it falls apart.
Like what specifics? Give me the details.
Well, first, the terrain wasn't steep enough to cause a significant avalanche.
Yeah.
Second, the tent itself wasn't buried, and there was no sign of significant snowfall.
Right.
And most importantly, an avalanche doesn't explain those strange injuries.
Yeah, so we're left with what? Something spooked them in the dead of night? Something that made them cut their way out of their shelter and flee into a freezing wasteland.
Yeah.
Some of them sustaining horrific injuries along the way. All right, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
Let's unpack these theories.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because when you look at the theories about what did happen at Dyatlov Pass, you find everything from the scientifically plausible to the downright bizarre.
All right, so hit me with your best shot. What are the most common explanations people have thrown around for this mystery?
Well, let's start with the fact that some of the hikers' clothing had traces of radiation on it.
Okay, now radiation immediately makes me think Cold War shenanigans.
Right?
Was there any thought that maybe they stumbled onto some kind of secret military testing ground?
It's a popular theory for sure, especially because this happened at a time of intense secrecy and paranoia.
Right, the Cold War.
Between the Soviet Union and the West.
Mm-hmm.
And some researchers believe it's possible that the hikers inadvertently wandered into a restricted area.
Okay.
And
maybe things got out of hand. An altercation. A struggle.
Yeah, maybe got a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, and those responsible tried to cover it up,
making
it look like some kind of freak accident.
Right.
That would make for a pretty good spy novel, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. It's important to note, though, that the levels of radiation weren't consistent with, like, fallout, that you'd expect from a weapons test.
Right.
It was more localized.
Okay.
And there are more mundane explanations.
Like what? Don't leave me hanging.
So certain industrial processes, even some medical treatments of the era,
involved radioactive materials.
Oh, interesting.
It's possible the hikers were exposed to something in their day-to-day lives.
Okay.
That could account for it.
Right. It's not as exciting as a government cover-up, but it's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest explanation is the most likely.
Exactly, Occam's razor.
But that still doesn't explain those injuries,
right,
or why they ran from their tent like something was chasing them.
Right.
What else is on the table?
Well, there's the infrasound theory.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that one?
Vaguely. It's got something to do with sound waves, right?
Right. So certain wind patterns, especially over mountainous terrain like the Urals, can create these low-frequency sound waves called infrasound.
Okay.
We can't hear them.
But these waves can interact with our bodies in strange ways.
What do you mean by strange waves?
Think about how a certain sound can, like, give you goosebumps,
right,
or make you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Infrasound can amplify that feeling.
Oh, wow.
Trigger a primal fear response.
Interesting.
Some studies suggest that exposure to high levels of infrasound can even cause disorientation, panic attacks, even hallucinations.
So you're saying these hikers might have been bombarded by this invisible sound wave, freaking out and fleeing their tent in a state of pure terror.
It's a possibility, and the geography of the region where they were camping is actually known for these particular wind patterns.
Wow, so they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's not a common occurrence, but it's within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, okay, now that's just creepy.
Right.
Imagine being bombarded by this, like, unsettling sound, feeling like you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
And the only way to escape is to run out into the freezing darkness. No wonder they cut themselves out of that tent.
Exactly. If the infrasound was strong enough, they might not have even been thinking clearly, just reacting on pure instinct.
But even if we entertain that theory, it still doesn't fully explain the injuries, does it?
Right.
I mean, I get panicking and running, but internal bleeding, a missing tongue.
Right.
That suggests something more directly physical, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And that's why some researchers have looked into other possibilities, including the local Mansi people, who knew that area of the Ural Mountains better than anyone.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading something about that. Weren't there rumors of the hikers stumbling onto some kind of sacred ground or having a run-in with the Mansi people?
There were indeed. Now, it's important to approach these kinds of theories with sensitivity and respect for different cultures.
So we're talking about, like, a potential clash of cultures.
Potentially, yeah.
Modern hikers versus the, like, ancient traditions of these people.
Right.
I can see how that could go really bad really fast.
Exactly. Some speculate that the hikers might have unknowingly trespassed on a sacred site.
Right.
Or maybe there was just a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
A conflict that escalated quickly out there in the middle of nowhere.
And given some of those injuries, a confrontation with the Mansi people, who were known to be, like, skilled hunters, deeply connected to their land, that could,
Sure.
That could explain a lot. It wouldn't be the first time a cultural misunderstanding led to tragedy.
It's true. And the Mansi, they have their own stories.
Right.
And legends associated with the region where the hikers died.
Okay.
Some of those stories speak of powerful spirits, of places where...
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Now we're going full supernatural. I thought we were sticking to,
well, I mean,
plausible explanations.
We're dealing with a mystery here, where even the most outlandish ideas, they can seem compelling.
Right.
You got to admit.
All right, fair enough. But, I mean, while those Mansi legends are fascinating, we really don't have any evidence linking them to what happened to those hikers.
We don't.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah.
We've got government conspiracies.
We do.
Bizarre natural phenomena. We even, like, touched on ancient curses and vengeful spirits.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is.
Yeah.
After diving into the evidence, the theories, the sheer weirdness of it all, what's your gut feeling? What do you think happened out there?
Honestly,
yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
And that's not a cop-out. That's the honest truth.
Wow.
The more you learn about this case, the more you realize how much we just don't know. Like trying to assemble a puzzle, half the pieces missing.
So it's a mystery that'll likely never be solved.
It's possible. Or, maybe someday someone will unearth that one crucial piece of evidence, that missing link that suddenly makes everything clear.
Right.
Who knows?
Until then, we're left with this enduring power of the unknown.
Right.
It's unsettling. But it's a good reminder that sometimes things happen and there's just no explanation.
Exactly. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, it reminds us that we're not always in control. That the world is full of mysteries that we may never fully understand.
It's true.
And that sometimes the most compelling stories, they're the ones without a neat and tidy ending.
Well said. And for our listeners out there, if this deep dive into the Dyatlov Pass has left you wanting more, I encourage you to do your own exploring.
There's a ton out there.
Yeah, there are countless articles, documentaries, even fictional accounts.
Oh, yeah.
Inspired by this case.
Definitely.
It's a rabbit hole worth going down.
It is.
But pay attention to the details.
Yes.
The smallest, seemingly insignificant clues can sometimes be the most revealing.
That's right.
What if you hold the key to unlocking this mystery? Now there's a thought to keep you up at night.
There you go.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never underestimate the power of a good mystery.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe the channel. Please share your feedbacks and thoughts through comments.